Hello Toy Collector fans, Universal Toy Collector here and welcome to the channel. Join me today as we take a look at the history of BP fairs, and to help me do so, I'm going to be joined by a very special guest. Okay, so yes, we will be talking all and everything BP fairs, and what better person to talk us through it than Ellis Potter himself. So, Ellis, welcome to
Hello.
the channel, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, very good, very well. Yeah, hope you like the backdrop.
I've got to say, it suits you. It suits you, sir.
It's a bit of fun.
Wow. Well, thank you for coming onto the channel and having this discussion. It's very much appreciated. I know you're a busy man. So I've been to a few BP fairs, mainly Sandown because it's local to me. I've been to a couple up at NEC. I've seen you pottering around out the front on the doors there, on the gates.
Yeah.
And wasn't too sure who you were. Then I saw you on Dave World Toys channel, and he explained who you were. And then I thought to myself, I recognise that dashing gentleman there, and it happened to be you. So yeah, I approached you the last time I went to Sandown, and you've agreed to come on the channel. So thank you. So basically, Ellis, I just would like to know a little bit more about BP fairs, how it started, when it started, your involvement. So if you wouldn't mind just taking us through the early days of BP fairs.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's a long-established family business. Originally, my father Barry, hence the BP Barry Potter in BP fairs. He was originally as a teen, he was sort of collecting model railways and so on, and then he started buying and selling model railways and rare old Hornby trains, things like this, in the 1970s. And it went really well for him. And he went full time, jacked his job and went full time buying and selling model trains. And they used to, way back in the 70s, there weren't many places that you could go to, swap meets, toy fairs, whatever you call them, in those days. And there were one or two, one in Gloucester and Windsor and so on, long-established shows. But he decided to do one himself in his own hometown, Market Harborough, on a Tuesday evening, 1979. And it just went boof. It went like a rocket, off like a rocket. It was absolutely heaving, oversubscribed. It was only a tiny venue, and it went really, really well. So they did another one, various venues, mainly throughout the Midlands. And then about 1981, decided to take a punt on doing a big one in London, in the London area. And then we looked at Sandown Park, and at the time, we thought, God, can we fill this? You know what I mean? Are there enough people in sort of toy and models to fill this? And we sort of promoted it heavily, and it went off to a great start, and it's grown over the years, and a lot of Europeans have been coming over. Over the years, we've had guys from all over Europe visiting the show, and it's gone really well, and other fairs started up, and the sort of 90s it was really booming, the toy fair scene. There were dozens of shows all over the country, and some have lasted the course, some haven't. We've taken on other shows such as the NEC from a promoters called DJ Fairs, Dave Jarrett and John Webb. We took that show over from them, as well as the one at Doncaster Racecourse, which is a popular show. And we've grown, and over the years we've sort of dropped the smaller, less successful shows, because basically there's a bit of a supermarket mentality really with the fairs. People like to go to a really big show. They want to go to a really big fair and feel that there's going to be loads to look at, because if there's only, let's say, 50 stalls, if you're into Marvel action figures, you can't be sure, for example, that there's going to be what you want there at that show. But if there's 500 stalls, then you've got a much more better chance of finding things that you're specifically interested in. And the shows have grown, and the profile of the fairs has changed over the years. It's as I say, originally it was sort of dinky toys, Hornby trains, and not many new collectibles. But now it's really broadened to everything from the sort of 1930s rare vintage items, 1950s, 1970s and 80s, or the retro items, and then the 90s, as well as the latest collectibles, whether it could be a Walking Dead action figure or Funko Pops, whatever's hot at the moment. It ends up on the tables at the fairs.
When did you notice the change? So when did it go from like train sets, dinky toys, and the old-fashioned toys to sort of like modern-day toys, like I say, early 80s, mid 80s to 90s?
Yeah.
When did that change? When did you notice that change?
Gradual, really. Everything happens gradually, but it does change. A lot of people are commenting now, particularly at the NEC. But I'd say the majority of the items there are sort of cool collectibles, sort of cool, funky, sort of retro things, and your sort of model railways and your sort of dinky toys are there, but they're in the minority. And it's taken a few years for that to happen. It's happening now at Sandown as well. We see it at Sandown Park, more items from the sort of 70s and the 80s on the tables than there ever used to be. So there wasn't a bang and it's changed. It just slowly changes over time because some sellers come in, some sellers go out, some sellers, and I'm thinking of one particular seller, John Morgan. He's been at Sandown for years, many years. He's been selling sort of tin plate toys, rare dinky toys, model railways, and now he's seen that Star Wars items in particular really sell well, so he's going where where the action is, and now he's buying and selling Star Wars collectibles and things that could turn a profit, basically.
So do you have many stall holders that are regular stall holders that have been there from, like, say, the early days? Are many of them adapting now, or some of them? Because I know a couple of the stall holders. I know there's a lady there called Wendy. She's been going there for a few years, and she predominantly does Doll's House. Yeah, that's it. Yep.
That's right.
That's my wife's mum's friend, and they do the Doll's House fair up at Cobham Village Hall.
That's right. Wendy's. Wendy's been involved in running her own fairs and markets for years, and she runs sort of doll fairs, teddy fairs, and she's always been specialising in sort of Doll's House and those kind of old sort of vintage collectibles. There are sellers like that just stick to what they know, and there are people that are more reactive and go where the action is, if you know what I mean, and can see that, there's money to be made out of this stuff. It's really hot. People are really wanting it. And it's a generational thing. Like sort of 30 years ago, things like your lead soldiers, Britain's lead soldiers, there were a lot more collectors for them then. But those guys that can remember them when they were kids, they're all dropping off the perch. You know what I mean? They're not getting any younger. And the younger guys coming in the sort of 20s, the 30s, they remember nostalgia from their childhood. Your Action Force action figures and A-Team and He-Man and all these kind of things. That's the thing that's really shooting up in popularity and price.
I was chatting to one of the guys there, and he had his big model railway set up. It's I think it's the middle of the hall at Sandown. And it's quite a big setup he's got. And it was and I was chatting to him, and he was quite an interesting guy because my granddad, he got me I think it was a 0 gauge model railway set when I was younger, and I went to one of your fairs actually. This was a few years back before COVID, and I got chatting to one of the guys there, and he bought it off me because I didn't have any sort of like use for it, so I sold it to one of your stall holders at Sandown. But I've got to say, I'm really impressed with the different variety of stalls that you have there, because I like that old vintage stuff. I don't collect it myself, but seeing the model railways, it's a nostalgia for me because of my granddad. And then you've got the Doll's House fair stuff that, like I say, my wife's mum, she's very much into. She does up her doll's houses and stuff like that. So she's very much into that. With stall holders, do you find it's predominantly the same ones keep coming back to you, or is it more and more now that you're getting more people wanting a slice of the pie and they want to do a stall? Or is it just predominantly the same people?
I think at Sandown and most shows, it's probably 2/3 regular guys each show. Probably 2/3 of the dealers are there every time, and then you get some new guys coming in. They might be completely new to selling, or there might be collectors selling off a few bits, or there might be the family of someone that's died and they're trying to sell their, the deceased relatives collection or whatever.
Okay.
But for loads of different reasons, they're usually about, at most of the fairs, about 2/3 of the people are regular sellers, and 1/3 are there on a temporary basis. They might maybe have a store once a year or once every couple of years, whenever they maybe want to turn some toys into cash to change direction with their own collection, or for whatever reason. But that's the kind of ratio.
Okay, cool. And what about yourself, Ellis? How did you become involved in it? Because I know it was your dad's. He was very much into it, and he started it up. When did you start taking an interest? Did you go to the toy fairs when you were younger with your dad? Did he show you around? Is that where you got your interest?
We've been me, myself, my brother, and my mum, and we've all been involved in it in various ways. We're all fully involved in it now, although I was buying and selling model railways myself in the late 80s, about 1980, 1990. And selling at buying sort of from auctions, selling at the fairs, and mail order as well. I was doing a mail order list, and then my dad and I, we used to buy from auctions basically and sell it mail order and at the shows, and we sort of thought, well, we know who the buyers are, we know who the sellers are. Why don't we set up our own auction? So we set up our own auction business, and Barry Potter Auctions, and we were based at Rugby, went really well, and we became the leading auction house for model railways in the UK. We were getting loads and loads of collectors giving us their collections. We were getting record prices for things. Went amazingly well. This was way before the internet. We didn't even have email. It was all sort of very low tech, but it worked really well. And then we were at a sort of crossroads at that point. We had the leading auction for model railways, and Vectis Auctions up in Teesside. They had the leading auction for dinky toys, and that was pretty much the toy scene in a nutshell at that point. It was just either cars or trains, and we had the trains and they had the cars. And anyway, we did a deal, and they bought us out, and we phased out our involvement in the auctions. And the guys at Vector took it over, and they've since blossomed. They've gone all fully online, and the whole new Star Wars scene and all these new collectibles has opened up for them, and the business changed massively from what it was when they bought us out. And at that point, I then it freed my time up basically, and then I then applied my time to the fairs business at that point, and that's when we started negotiations with DJ fairs, and we took on the show at NEC, for example.
So currently you covered, from what I can see, 7 different venues. You've got Bolton, Coventry, Doncaster, NEC Birmingham, Stafford, Sandown, and Buxton. Do you have any plans to expand BP fairs, or are you happy with where you're at the moment?
We're happy with where we're at, but we're always looking for new venues. It's got to be right. We've looked at lots of places in the past, and it hasn't quite worked right. We lost a really great venue at Dorrington Park. It was a huge, great shed to build tanks in it in the wall. It was a bit very sort of bare basics event, but it's well regarded and well remembered by the guys that used to visit, because it was a really, really great fair. But unfortunately, the venue, they wanted to use it for a car auction, and they don't want to take events there anymore, so we had to leave that one, which is a real shame. So we're always on the lookout for other places we can go, but they'll be big these days. That's what catches the eye, big shows. So you can never say never, but at the moment, we're happy with the stable of events that we've got, if you like.
Yeah, awesome. Now, my first visit to a BP fair, I think it must have been 1999. 1999. It was the year the Phantom Menace came out, the new Star Wars film, Episode 1. And I'm assuming it would have been BP fairs that would have done that one.
Yeah. We've been. Sorry, what was the show?
It
What was
was
the fair?
it was a Sandown Toy Fair, but it was in
Sandown.
1999.
We've been doing
Yeah.
it. Yeah, we started it in 1981. So yeah, it's been going a while.
It would
Yeah,
have, it would have been.
yeah.
So
So
what
yeah,
I found interesting about that and the draw for me was that the fact that you had like Ray Park, you had I can't remember her name, Roxanna Dawson, um, uh, Jeremy Blake, and you had like signings there. The recent ones I've been to, you don't seem to do too many signings anymore. Is that something that you've sort of like phased out and you just want to concentrate on the toy fair itself, or are you happy to
I
bring
think
in?
you're thinking of a different show actually. That show at Sandown was a show called Memorabilia by a guy called Henry Cook. He used to run a memorabilia show at the NEC that was really popular, and he tried it down at Sandown, but I think he only did one or maybe two. It just didn't really work for him. So that wasn't our fair, but same venue. But yeah, in terms of signings and so on, we tend to just we concentrate on our niche and what we do best, which is the stalls, the fact that you can wander around. There could be anything for sale, from a 1960s Beatles album to a 1980s Star Wars figure to a the very latest Funko Pop collectible, whatever. We concentrate on the stalls, really. That's what we're about.
Okay.
There's other people that do the whole signings thing, and they do it a lot better than we can do. They're well established in that field. People like Showmasters and so on are great at that. And it's not what we do. We just do the stalls.
So is that what difference? Is that the difference, should I say, between a toy fair and a convention?
Yeah. Comic Con is very much a sort of celebration of that genre, if you like, and signings are a big part of it. You know, I was at the Star Wars celebration at Excel a few weeks back, and whilst they've got stalls there and stands and you can buy stuff, a lot of that show is about sort of meeting the people and the stars and getting the signings and queuing up for the autographs and the photos. But we're just the sales stands side of things.
And that would never, so you're categorically saying you would never go down that route of getting.
Well, you can never say never, but for example, at the last Sandown show we had, on one of the stalls was one of the guys that's been in a recent Star Wars series. One of the actors was there, and he was offering sort of photographs and autographs and so on. So we're not saying no, you can't do it, but we're not going massively down that route with a whole area of the hall sectioned off for queuing and photos and all that. We want to pack the hall full of stalls so that people come in and think, wow, there's just loads to choose from, loads to browse over.
Awesome. You have quite a few well-known celebrities turn up to your toy fairs as well, don't you? I've bumped into Shane Ritchie at Sandown, and I think you were saying that there was someone else that goes to NEC. I wasn't quite sure who was that.
Yeah, we get a few sort of famous faces every now and again at the show. Some of them like to sort of keep it under wraps. There's a well-known train model railway enthusiast that turns up at shows, and he's often got a baseball cap on and sort of keeps his head down. You wouldn't really, unless you sort of, stood him still and looked him in the eyes, you wouldn't really know it was him. So I wouldn't really want to out him as a regular collector. But we over the years we've had quite a few guys from sort of the music industry and the sort of TV side of things that come along and collect, because it's a fun hobby. Everybody can get into it at any level, no matter what you collect, and whether you want a complete room full of your passion, or whether you just want a few bits on a shelf in your spare room. Everyone can enjoy it at whatever level works for them.
Yeah, cool. Right, so moving on, 2020, the year that never was, how much of an impact did that have on you? And did you ever think that you will be getting back to the levels you were pre-pandemic?
Yeah, it was a crazy time. It really was, but it was just a question of switching everything off. Just turn it all off, and you just got to wait and see, gauge when you're legally allowed to open. But not just then. It's more a question of when the public are going to have the confidence to come back. And that did take a little bit of time, but pretty quickly, within a few shows, we were really up and running. And now it feels like we're fully back where we were before all that. You know, it's sure. I mean, if people want to turn up and sort of keep a bit of a distance, or maybe wear a face covering, that's entirely up to them.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think for the vast majority of the population, they just want to get their lives back, and they have done. Yeah.
How was the first one back? What was the first toy fair after COVID when restrictions were?
I think, God, you got me on the spot now, but I think it might have been Stafford. I can't think right now off the top of my head which one it was, but it could have been the Stafford show. And it was good to see everybody, and some of the public were a little bit wary, a little bit cautious, because everyone had their own relationship with COVID, didn't they? Whether they thought, you know what I mean, or I'm not sure if it's safe to go out the house, or I've got to take lots of precautions. And yet on the other side of that, you got people thinking, look, I really don't give a monkey's. I just want my life back. I want to get out and do all the things that I used to do before. I understand the risks, and I've either had it or I haven't had it, but either way, I just want to crack on and get some normality back.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing. I mean, it was a horrible time for everybody, and that was the one thing that I missed was the toy fairs, the conventions, because personally myself, I thought, well, crikey, it's going to take a hell of a long time for this to ever get back to how it was before COVID, you know, because of like some people's attitudes and stuff like that. And then slowly you saw the world start opening up again. I saw a friend in Holland. He was going back to his like toy fairs and stuff like that, and it was just so cool because I know a lot of conventions they went online, didn't they, with their toy fairs, you know, like Hasbro and the real big companies. I guess that was something that you couldn't do as a toy fair.
We're pretty old school, sort of low tech, really. I mean, the pretty much are trestle table events, very low entry cost. For the NEC, for example, it's £65 for a 6 foot table. I mean, there's no other show at the NEC where you can hire 6 foot of space for 65 quid. It's just like a half or a third of any other event at the show, at the venue. So we like to keep it back to basics, keep it simple, keep it straightforward. So we're not just talking to professional sellers with bigger budgets. We like to encourage collectors to be able to afford to take a table and just have a go, sell a few bits, buy a few bits, chat to some people. The whole thing's very sociable. For years back when eBay first sort of launched in the UK, they were doing promotions with us at Sandown, trying to launch the eBay platform. They gave away a load of carrier bags and so on, trying to push eBay. And we were sort of thinking to ourselves, is this the beginning of the end for in-person toy fairs, if you like? Is everyone going to go online? And it hasn't really happened because you can't really beat that person-to-person contact. Sure, everyone's buying and selling online, but you can only sit in front of your computer for so long before you think, you know what, I want to get out and I want to pick something up and look at it and chat to other people with the same interests and be in the room and have the thrill and the buzz of wandering around and thinking what might be there today. You know what I mean? Or it's the thrill of the chase, if you like. It's not
absolutely. Absolutely. I do a series on my channel called My Collecting Life, and I ask like all sorts of different collectors about their collecting life, basically, how they got into it and stuff like that. And one of the questions I ask is towards the end is, what gives you that toy collecting buzz? And a lot of people have turned around and said it's the fact that they can actually go and find something in person as opposed to getting it online. And because a lot of the stores in the UK now, they don't really sort of like, they're getting better, but to go to an actual toy fair and to see something that you want in and find it, I think is a massive buzz compared to just looking online's easy, isn't it? Anybody
exactly. You just type what you want into a search bar and it's either there or it's not. You bid for it and you get it, or you don't, or you just buy it, and it works. It's great. It's very popular, obviously, but it's in terms of going to the shows, there's a bit of a hunt on there. You just never know what's going to be there. You know what I mean? It's the excitement of finding that thing that you really wanted, or finding something you didn't even know existed, or didn't even know that you wanted. You know, it's those kind of emotions that it brings up when you're wandering around and you see something. I'm at shows and I see things and I think, God, I remember that when I was a kid. I've not seen that for like 40 years. And I remember owning it, and it brings those emotions back. And it can be a really, really fun day out. Yeah.
So are you a collector? Do you collect? And if so, what do you collect?
Yeah, whatever takes my eye, really. I don't really have a theme. I don't really say, oh yeah, I've got all these and I'm only missing that one and this one. I'll just buy whatever is of interest to me. I used to have a film poster collection. I used to have be into quite a few film posters, and now it's just really whatever I see, and I think, I like that. I'd like to own that. It's a nice thing. I know my brother collects a bit. My dad, he still collects a bit. So the bug is still there in the family. We, although you can't have everything. I mean, we're at shows, every other weekend, and if you bought everything that you like the look of, you've not got enough money, you've not got enough room in the house. So there comes a time when you've got to say, I appreciate that item, but I'll just have to look at it for now. Because if I take it home,
you know that feeling.
Exactly. Yeah, we're all there. Sometimes you think maybe I'm going to sell one to buy one. It's but that's part of collecting, isn't it? Nothing
Absolutely.
ever. I mean, you can be one of those guys that just wants to go from A to Z of a particular theme and own every one. Or you can just be a bit more fluid, and your taste might change over time. You might want to sell these few bits to buy these few bits, or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a linear way of collecting. You can do whatever works for yourself.
Absolutely. Just a couple more questions. But what is the biggest venue you are at currently?
They're both pretty much neck and neck size wise. The NEC and Sandown are both about the same size. Just over 500 stalls. NEC maybe pips it by about 20 stalls, but there's not much in it. Sandown's a great venue because there's lots of nooks and crannies. You've got little bars here and rooms at the back and offshoots and upstairs. So Sandown's a bit more of an exciting place to explore, whereas the NEC's one massive rectangular room. And it's just full of rows and rows and rows of tables. And what's on the tables is very different at each show. Sandown is much more varied. A lot of guys come from Europe, bringing different things, and there's more vintage items, more older items at Sandown than there are at the NEC. But the NEC seems to be really roaring away with the sort of Comic-Con crowd, if you like, are really visiting there in big numbers, and because it's kind of self-perpetuating. They come, so the guys on the stalls, they do well selling those kind of toys, so they bring more, and that encourages more people to take stalls. So it seems to be a growing area, very much so. The sort of the cult TV collectible is very much hot.
Going back to Sandown, you said there's a downstairs, and you've got stalls downstairs.
No, sorry, upstairs. Sorry, you go up. There's like a little bar called the Horse Walk Bar by the parade ring. So you've got that little area up there. There's about 25 stalls up there. You've got to go up a few stairs to it.
Is that just outside? You've got the main lobby. Is that just to the side of the main lobby?
There's a sports bar. There's a bar off there with again about 25 stalls in, and then you walk down the hall, and at the end, right at the very end, there's another little room down there called the Brasserie. With stalls in. So there's different areas to explore that make it quite interesting, because you sort of kind of get the impression that, well, have I seen it all? Have I missed a bit?
Just explain the backdrop behind you, because it's not just toy fairs that you do, is it?
Yeah, sorry, we have another business called Riverside Hub. It's a large indoor play centre. I thought better explain the backdrop. This is our winter room. It's a party room that we do. I'll just spin the camera around so you can see. It's basically it's where kids can come and celebrate a birthday. yeah, it's kind of like a bit of a Frozen vibe. So they can explore this little sort of secret castle thing behind me. So yeah, that's what it's all about. I'm sure a lot of people will be thinking, where the hell is he? But yeah, that's it. We're in a winter themed party room. Yeah, yeah. So it's not my bedroom, honest. Yeah.
I was going to say, is it just the one venue you have, or do you expand elsewhere around the country like you do with the BP?
Yeah, we've just got one site at the moment called Riverside Hub in Northampton. It's the UK's largest indoor play centre, and it's really cool. Yeah. It's fun. Yeah, this party room is pretty special. It's our most popular one. And, yeah, lots of little girls like to come in here, and it makes their day really memorable.
Awesome. Ellis, I thank you so much. That's come to the end of the chat. Like I say, I know you're a busy man. I don't want to keep you too long. I really appreciate you coming on and explaining a bit more about BP Fairs. I found it highly interesting and a really enjoyable chat. So thank you. Where can people find you on social media?
BP Fairs. We're on Facebook, Instagram. Obviously, the website bpfairs.com is going to have all the dates for the shows. And you can sign up to receive emails, and we'll email you before each event, just a reminder in case you forget. There's nothing worse than suddenly finding out, oh, that thing was last week and I wanted to go and there's not another one for 3 months. So yeah, that's a good way of just keeping up to date with what's happening.
Awesome. Okay, I will leave all the social media links to BP Fairs in the description below. Ellis, once again, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. Really enjoyed the chat. And yeah, appreciate you taking the time out. Thank you.
No problem, Stuart. It's a pleasure. Bye for now.
Thank you so much. No worries. Cheers now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
I just want to say thank you to everybody who's watching. Always appreciate your support. Take care, stay safe, and we shall see you in the next video. And bye for now.